Hey gang, welcome back to my channel, and today we're looking at another action figure showcase. So this time I designed and 3D printed the absolute Wonder Woman action figure. This was a huge project for me, not only because of the actual absolute Wonder Woman figure, which I think looks pretty awesome. We'll look at more details of this later, but also because of the accessories. And I know you already see the horse in the back there, but accessories like the Ares helmet head sculpt, the angry head sculpt, a bunch of different hands, and also this amazing sword, and most definitely that huge horse that's sitting in the back there. This Wonder Woman was a really interesting sculpt and a really interesting project, specifically because of the armor and the asymmetry of the armor. Because on the left hand side here, right hand side on our screen, left hand side for Wonder Woman, she basically has red wraps and armor pieces that are going all the way up on her arm, whereas on the right hand side it's more of a wrap that's going up to just the forearm there, with like war paint covering the rest of her arm, which I think looks really cool. The corset design on this Wonder Woman was also something that was really interesting, especially because we had to put the cloth skirt on here. We made it so that the piece sits on top of the trunks, which is kind of different from what I'm usually used to, because the trunks would usually, with Batman or Superman, have a belt that sits over the abdomen piece. So it was interesting doing this design. I think just overall in terms of design, this Wonder Woman has a lot of good details and armor pieces everywhere, which is really nice, visually very interesting, and also a lot of sculpt work went into it, so it was fun sculpting as well. I think another challenging part was the knee joint, which has this kneecap which sits over the boot here, and because it sits over the boot, the engineering had to be almost perfect, because I had to get like the gapping and the tolerances really perfect to make it sit like that and still articulate well, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I think that a lot of interesting things went into this Wonder Woman action figure, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. We did something different as well, especially for the war paint on the right arm of Wonder Woman. Usually with most of my figures, if there's any paint details, like imagine you had Wonder Woman with trunks with stars on it, I wouldn't sculpt the stars on, and I would basically leave it for later on so that I can paint it onto the figure. But with this figure, my wife gave me really good feedback on actually having some grooves for the war paint, so when we actually paint the red on, we've got some kind of indications to go by, and we can put paint onto those parts rather than having to guesstimate everything. So I think this turned out really well because we had the sculpted parts in there. So yeah, I'm really happy we started doing that. Have an idea for the next big electronic device but not sure how to bring it to life? Our sponsors at PCBWay have the solution for you. From schematic design to software and firmware development and even physical 3D printed enclosures, PCBWay help you turn your concepts into real working products really fast. It all starts with the schematic diagram. PCBWay's expert engineers will help you create clean, efficient schematics that are ready for real-world implementation and manufacturing. Then comes PCB design and layout. PCBWay makes sure that essentials like signal integrity, high-speed routing, and every single trace is precisely designed with industry best practices in mind. PCBWay's firmware development team can write robust, efficient code for your microcontrollers. Pair your hardware with intuitive user interfaces. Software developers at PCBWay build desktop and mobile apps tailored to your product, from device configuration tool to cloud dashboards. Have a smart product idea? PCBWay also provide algorithm development, from machine learning to signal processing, so your product can think, learn, and adapt. And when it comes to housing your electronics, PCBWay have you covered there as well. With 3D printing and custom enclosure design, PCBWay create a prototype that you can hold in your hand and show to investors, partners, or customers. Get started today at PCBWay.com/designs-services and turn your ideas into reality. Here we have the prototype of the action figure, and I really only do prototypes so that I can look at the actual finished product and see what we can add, change, or what does not fit well. So with this figure, particularly with the head sits on really high on the neck. It's because of the hair piece that was kind of getting in the way and clashing with the neck part that didn't allow the head to go all the way in. So it's good that we realized that, and when we did the final print, we changed that so that the head sat all the way down. My wife also gave me feedback based on this, because having to paint war paint on this would have been really difficult because there was no indentations at all. So when we did the final product, we actually put in some sculpt work there. So just because we don't have the cloth skirt on this figure, we can see the thigh armor piece really well here. So it adds a lot of thickness to this figure. So I was initially really worried that it was going to add too much thickness and it was going to look disproportionate. But I think when we have the actual skirt on the figure like that, it kind of looks really, really nice. So I'm really happy with how that turned out as well. And I think doing a prototype print usually really gives us like indications on what we want to fix and update. So with the head, it was really helpful that we saw this, and we saw that it was sitting a little bit too high. So the sculpt work was updated so that the hairpiece in the back here was not as bulky, so it could sit on the figure much better. So to fix the neck joint and the head sitting awkwardly on the figure, we had to make a few compromises. So especially with the head sculpt, we had to trim down a little bit of the hair back here so that there was more allowance for the neck to actually peg in, and this allowed for the joint to be more visible, and basically the peg can go straight through here. We also had to make compromises on like a few locks of hair that came in front of the figure as well, which was sitting in front of the shoulder here. I'll show you in the 3D renders, but we had to compromise on that and get rid of that so there's less volume of hair. But I think overall for the figure, it just turned out a lot better because the articulation works a little bit better as well now, which we'll look at in the final figure. But yeah, that was the compromise we had to make to get the head sitting right. So despite how good this figure actually looks, I was still not happy with how the ankle turned out. It will probably be a little bit more visible on the prototype here. So the ankle joint looks like a pair of pants that sit a little bit too high, and that was because we still wanted to add the articulation part here. So while adding that articulation, we had to cut the armor part a little bit short so that we could get all kinds of movements on the ankle here. So that's why it looks a little bit weird, and I wasn't totally happy with it, but I think it was a necessary compromise to get the articulation onto the figure. So with the way the story goes with Absolute Wonder Woman, there was a lot of inspiration taken from Greek mythology and Wonder Woman actually taking the place of the god of war Ares. It was kind of hinted at that because I think Wonder Woman was actually born in hell for this iteration. So that's why we gave her Ares helmet as well, which does look a little bit tiny because I'm looking at it now. But I'll quickly show you the prototype and the final piece. So the prototype was a little bit bigger, but it had less human properties. So the eyes were sitting, I think, a little bit too low, and the head was way too round and flat at the top. So when we updated this, we gave it a more human-like feature with the rounded back here, and also made the eyes a little bit more central and up top, and gave it a little bit more shape to make it look a little bit more human. So I think overall it turned out well, but we could have probably gone like maybe 1 or 2% up in terms of size and make it a little bit better. But I think overall it looks really cool, and I really like the Ares head. Most of the paintwork on this figure was done by my wife, and as always, I think she's done an incredible job. I think especially with the head and how the skin color looks, and especially with the eyes. I think the eyes with both these figures look incredibly amazing, and I really like how this head sculpt turned out in particular. But the eyes are amazing, and also the lips look pretty good. The silver on the tiara looks awesome as well, and the red on the tiara looks pretty amazing. I think she did a really awesome job with the head. The skin colors on most of the body looks amazing. The war paint, I think, really stands out and makes this figure pop. So I really like the gunmetal gray on this figure because it gives it that black metal kind of look, which I think goes really well with the figure. The only issue we had was with the red on the armor plated pieces, because we only had Tamiya red and we wanted to give it a metallic look. So when we added some chrome silver to the Tamiya red, it kind of gave off a pinkish hue, which made it look a little bit too pink and not enough red. So I think that's the only place where we kind of messed up a little bit. But other than that, the figure looks great. Just another example of the red looking pink. If you look at the hair here, that kind of looks a little bit pink as well. I think overall the paintwork is awesome. It's just some mess ups with the color. So next up, we're looking at the part that took the most amount of time on this build, and it is the horse for Absolute Wonder Woman. Basically a horse in hell without any muscles or any flesh or anything like that. It's just bones. So I think it's a pretty cool design, and it was really tough to sculpt. I think when I initially did the sculpt, I was only looking at a few of the Wonder Woman cover arts. And when I was looking at the cover art, I was looking at a horse in just drawing form. So when I tried to convert that into a figure, it kind of roughly looked like a bony horse, but it had no anatomical structure at all. So when I showed it to my wife, who is of a medical background, she told me that the bones did not look quite right. So we took some time and looked at proper references of bones and anatomically got it correct. So I think that's why it looks half decent now. I think a lot of the bones here are very accurate to what they should be in the actual like kind of skeletal structure. The head was also designed to look very accurate to what it looks like on a horse. And I think something that I need to point out is some of the bones are slightly thicker than it would be in a real horse because of this being an action figure, and we needed some of that thickness so that the joints could work properly. So it is not 100% accurate, but still accurate enough to be pretty cool looking. So I think we spent a lot of time here, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. So here we have our Absolute Wonder Woman action figure with the final version of the horse and the prototype version of the horse. So the reason I'm showcasing this is because when we initially did the 3D version of the horse looked pretty alright with the 3D render of Wonder Woman as well. But when we actually printed it out, the horse was way too big and it just looked massive in front of Wonder Woman. So if you look at this Wonder Woman now, the final version of the horse looks alright, but the horse on the back looks really large. So we reduced the horse by 10%, and I think it looks much more accurate in terms of scale comparison to the Wonder Woman now. So for the color on this horse, we basically went for a gray overall look for the horse. We've got some deep reds in the eye sockets and the nose hole here. And my wife also did a spray of red all over the figure to give it a little bit more of a hellish red tinge. We also did some darker grays on the hooves here to give it a little bit of contrast, and we went with a minimal look for the horse, which I think still looks pretty awesome. Because this was the first time of me doing animal related action figures, which I've not done before, I had to really think outside the box for the joints. So the joints aren't too different from what I would do for a normal action figure, but they are used a little bit different so that the horse gets full mobility. If we look at the head here, it is on a ball joint, which gives the horse ability to look up, down, left, right. And we've also got another ball joint here that will allow the horse to basically bend down or look up, and also pivot around as well. With this joint, I've done a little bit more work where this part is a single piece, but the part here basically can go up about that much. It's a little bit loose. And this part can also kick up, and the hoof also can go back and forth. So these are all hinge joints here. This part is a little bit loose because I didn't clamp it down after heating. I'll do that after this, but I'll go through some more joints as well. On the back here, we've got a ball joint that goes into the thigh piece here, so the horse can kick out if needed and pivot around. It's a little bit tight, but it can basically pivot around as needed. This joint can kick back a little bit, but because of the sculpt, it does get a little bit of hindrance, which is unfortunate. And this joint can go back and forward without any issues, and again with all the back hooves, they can pivot as well. So although the horse doesn't have a lot of articulation, I'm just hoping that it has enough to give you some good poses to pose alongside Wonder Woman. So for the articulation on this figure, the head cannot go up that much because of the sculpted hair, but the head can go down that far forward, and also can pivot and tilt left and right, and also turn a little bit with the hair like kind of getting out of the way. With the shoulders, you can go all the way around that way, and with the hair, it does hinder that upward movement a little bit, but if the hair wasn't there, it could go all the way around. Can also come up about that much with the shoulder hinge, and the bicep is a little bit stuck possibly because of the paint, but you can pivot the biceps 360 as well. It is just a little bit stuck, probably because of the paint. The butterfly does allow for the arms to go out a little bit as well. There's double joint in the elbows, which goes up that much. There is hinge at the wrist and also pivot at the wrist joint. It's pretty cool. With the torso, you can look left and right, no issues, and because of the way the diaphragm is structured, it has a lot of clearance and a lot of good motion. She can crunch up about that much moving forward and can go that far back. There is a little bit of gappage, but she can do that. With the trunk joint here, because it was designed mostly to hold the cloth skirt in place, it doesn't allow for too much articulation, but it will still do a little bit of twisting here and there. Let's get the arms out of the way. With the legs for this figure, she's got a drop down, which allows her to kick up about that much. And if you look at the boots here, she also has the AT Ajak Toys kind of thing at the bottom, which is pretty cool. And with the legs, she can also kick out about that much with the armor piece getting in the way a little bit. And there is a slight bit of pivot if you need that as well. With the knees, it's a double jointed knee, which can crunch up about that much. And also with the ankles, you can go back and forth. So that's all the articulation that I've put onto this Wonder Woman action figure. Now let's get to the conclusion. The figure was printed a couple of months ago, but due to some scheduling, I was not able to complete this video earlier. With that being said, I'm really happy with how the joints are durable and have still stayed functional over the 2 months that I've not used it. No joints broke for the figure, and I really enjoy the properties of Resione Tough 74 V2 quite a lot. I'll also be doing a long-term functionality test of joints for all of my action figures I've printed over the years in the near future, so please stay tuned for that. But ultimately, despite the painting mishap, I do not have too many regrets about this Wonder Woman action figure. The only regrets I have is the red paint on the figure, the skirt piece which could have been a lot better with wires, and making her a bit more muscular and bigger to fit the comic version of the character. Let me know your thoughts on this video and if you enjoyed this figure or not down in the comment section below. I'll be making more action figures in the future, so please stay tuned for that and subscribe to my channel so you'll never miss an upload. A like on this video would be very helpful, and if you want to vote on what action figures I make next, please hop on over to my Patreon to cast your vote. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.